Amazing. Hey, beautiful people. Welcome to another Horizon seminar. I am Leona Nichole Black, your priestess, oracle teacher for today. Excuse me for a second. I'm fiddling around with some controls. There we go. Perfect. It is my pleasure to hold space to open the temple today to allow some energy, some blessings and teaching, some spiritual expansion to come through. Thank you to those of you who are here live to contribute energy, to bring your questions, whether you ask directly or through intuition, through emotion, through being available and open in the space, and also to those of you who will be watching, gang, those of you who will be watching the playback, thank you also for your energy, your intention to participate, to collaborate, and to expand what it is that we're doing here today, because time and space are not linear. I know that you are going to receive the healing and the messages that you are also needing in whatever time space you are currently asking them in. So Horizon as a seminar is not necessarily a seminar in terms of how you might think about a teaching. It's more a seminar in the format that I would have used when I was like teaching in the university. So, you know, in traditional academia, you'll have a lecture and then you'll have a group space. It's a little bit noisy outside, but can you hear that noise, or is my sound level good enough? Because I can really hear the outside noise, so just let me know. But yeah, you'll have the seminar, which becomes the group space in which you start to make the lecture, the ideas, the concepts make sense, right? So the seminar is a collaborative space. It's where you ask questions. It's where you demonstrate your learning. Oh, amazing, because it's super loud. Where you demonstrate your learning. Okay, so there's a whole announcement for the community happening in Spanish. I'm not fluent enough to understand all of it, but I heard pregunta, presidente, a few other things. I know pregunta's questions. I feel like this is an electoral campaign. The person may have driven away now, so hopefully we don't have too much more noise interruptions. But yeah, hilarious little interjection there. So what I was sharing before that moment is that the seminar space is one for collaboration. It is one for demonstrating our learning, expanding our learning, and getting to the meat of things. And the reason I bring that up is so that you understand that even when I present teaching from the spiritual perspective and from a philosophical perspective is a thoughts in progress. It's a process, right? So I expand as a teacher, I learn by the questions I have, by the questions you have, by the experiences that we're having, and by our relationship to each other, to the earth, and to spirit, right? And without that rubric, as in without that structure, that lesson, the syllabus, so to speak, which is life, then we don't get the impetus or the ingredients for the teachings in the first place. So when you come to Horizon or anything else that I'm doing, I want you to think about it as a collaboration and as the teachings expanding through our relatedness to each other. So therefore it is more horizontal. I want you to think of yourself as part of the ecosystem of learning, rather than looking at me and being like, this is a person I expect to have all the answers and I have all the questions. I don't work like that. It won't work like that. You will be disappointed and or repelled from the space if that is the expectation that you come with. Okay, so with that said, what I was feeling called to do today, and it's a little bit different than how I've been doing Horizon, is that the spirits were saying that they wanted to use the spiritual tool, process, technology of catharsis. And catharsis is what we understand as like emotional release, particularly through engagement with art or beauty. So it's a very Venusian concept. And it can also be about unblocking difficult/trapped emotions by the increase of pleasure. But ultimately, catharsis is about release from pain into something that feels more soothing or has a more, let's say, desired internal experience in terms of the body and the emotions. As a Scorpio fifth house, I'm very, very experienced with catharsis. Some of the ways that we may practice catharsis is sex, for example. I specifically practice catharsis through visual art, TV shows, watching things, other people experience. Actually, this is a little bit of a different teaching because I was asking the spirits about the difference between transmutation and catharsis. And I won't get into that because I was going to talk about movement, but movement is more so transmutation than catharsis. But that's a theoretical topic for another time. Today, we are actually focusing on the experience of catharsis. So what that means is that today's session is about the feeling space. It is about the emotions. It's not going to be purely teaching and philosophical, because there is a need for emotional needs to be met, seen, responded to before we are able to receive teaching, knowledge, instruction. Okay, so we're not moving primarily or solely from the mind. We're going to be dropping in and experiencing what is going on in the feeling space. And that is what the spirits have said they want to collaborate to do today. And so the structure or the inspiration that they've given me, and like I said, it's an alive thing. So I'm participating and collaborating with them in the moment. I don't know what's going to happen, but they wanted us to work with the mixed emotions deck and to start pulling out, looking at the inspiration they gave me was to pull out some core emotions and use those as our jumping point, our exploration point to be tended to, and also ask our questions about how we're experiencing different emotional states at this time as individuals and as a collective. And if you're watching this around the time frame in which I've recorded it, then you also know that we've come through an eclipse. And it's been a very, very, very intense, really difficult energy, I think, on so many different layers, from the like micro and the personal to the macro and the political. And we are needing support for the big expansion of feeling, particularly the feelings, or the sense that the difficult feelings are expanding, and maybe ways some of the easier or more pleasant or more life-sustaining feelings are not. So I'm going to say a prayer to officially open the temple space and call the energies in. And I want to name also, so there's two technologies we're working with so far. We've got catharsis as one. The other one I want to name is prayer. So thinking about prayer as a spiritual technology that doesn't belong to any one religion. So religions are, again, I like the kind of framework of rubric today. They are containers of culture. That means that they are able to develop art, systems of knowledge and ideas for how they want to express a particular principle. So by that, I mean, prayer can look different from belief system to belief system, from faith to religion, right? So if you're a Muslim, you might pray in a certain kind of way. If you're a Sufi, you might pray in a certain kind of way. If you're a Pentecostal Christian, you might pray in a certain way. If you're Catholic, if you're a Buddhist, okay, everyone has their culture, which was related to how they're playing with life, about how they want to use the technology itself, which is prayer. So divination is a form of prayer, because prayer is communication, right? Prayer is communication with the divine. And so any form of communication is an action of prayer. But I want you to think about it also as the difference between texting, video call, and being in person with someone. Different modalities of communication feel like different things, and they translate or transmit different things. So astrology and tarot are two divination systems that feel very different to each other, in the same way that writing a letter and a spoken prayer can be different. But I want you to think about all of those things as a relationship, as a communication technology that allows you to expand your relationship with the divine, and then with the specific iterations, animations, expressions of the divine, i.e. the deities you work with, the spirit guides you have, your ancestors, etc. So with that framework given, and hopefully something that you're able to use, I am going to pray in the way that feels culturally relevant and specific for me. And I will say that my purpose and the way in which I engage in prayer is about calling energies. So I like to use prayer as invitation and as shaping the energy and the emotion of the space. So we know the other things that can do that, for example, song and music. So you may feel a different way if you listen to music. You can go into spaces like church spaces, for example, and there may be praise and worship and singing, and that creates a certain kind of energy. So lots of different technologies to engage. Today, I'm going to use prayer. I like to use prayer for calling energy in. You may use it for other things. Okay. Honorable ancestors, divine spirit in its highest form, the land spirit that I'm on, the mother energies that are moving through the physical earth, that are collaborating with the land, the ancestral spirits that are tied to land spaces. We greet you, we honor you, we acknowledge you. We acknowledge the suffering in the spaces that we're in. We even acknowledge the energies that would like to disrupt. We acknowledge and we separate. We acknowledge and we decline. We acknowledge and we breathe in our sovereignty. We acknowledge and we turn our energy towards our creative expansion of what it is that we want to do here. And we call in, we call forth, we collaborate with the energies of wisdom today. We call in, we collaborate with, we expand the energy of my water spirits for the processing and the education and emotion. We call in the other elements for balancing, for adjustment, for alchemy, for transmutation, for context. We call in peace for the parts of us that are frustrated and driven towards action. And we call in the spirits, the essences, and the principles of acceptance for the parts of us that need to be able to let go. I call forth, I collaborate with, I allow through the goddess that has birthed me and the consciousness that I am from, and our interests in justice, in truth, in liberation, in beauty, and experiencing ecstasy and pleasure and goodness. And we use the sword of communication and truth today to cut through lies and illusions. And we use it to separate ourselves from stories that have us stuck, frozen in time, have our code corrupted in terms of how we are able to move and create and collaborate in this universe. And we call through needle and thread. And we call through the technology of spiritual weaving to attach, to stitch, to bring connection to the spaces in which we are disconnected. That as we separate, we know also what we can be joined to, where we can have belonging. And we ask that as this foundation and basis of energies come forward today, that you will also be a container that expands in the most progressive and helpful directions. Ashe. Ashe. I have some people singing in the street. Well, I don't have them. There are. There are people singing in the street at the moment. Panama is incredibly alive this afternoon. Okay, so now that prayers are done, let's kind of anchor in. Well, first energy jumping out is unfulfilled. I do think this energy came out in our last Horizon session also. We're anchoring into the core energies and emotions that need addressing for the cohort and the community of which I am both in service and serviced by. We've got depressed. We've got afraid. I'm screaming because we have fulfilled. Oh, I love that, because actually what is created is a spectrum, is an energy spectrum. And I'm actually going to change the way that I've laid these out, because I've been really thinking about energy spectrums in terms of circles, not lines. So I'm going to organize this in a circular format to help me with that framework so that I can stay in line with that kind of philosophy as I explore these energies. So let's have a look. I'm just going to tune in for a second. So the first thing coming through is that there is a tension and a struggle in terms of our relationship to fulfillment slash unfulfillment. It feels that we are enslaved by our concepts of these things and by our expectations of what it is to be fulfilled. So I'm going to actually expand that energy a little bit and see what instruction is coming through, particularly through the energy of wisdom. So it looks like fulfillment is a belief system that we've taken on through the framework of healing. Three of Pentacles and the Star card here. So really the energy is indicating that we perceive that to be in both the process, but actually quite far along the experience of having healed from whatever it is that we think is ailing us or whatever life circumstances we've been trying to liberate ourselves from. We have the belief system that that should equal, as in 1 + 1 should equal 2 fulfillment. This is what we have been expanding towards. This has been like our vehicle of expansion. So by that, I mean it is the reason you do something. So vehicle of expansion can sometimes, a simpler way to put it is motivation. What are you motivated by? The motivation is fulfillment through the vehicle of healing. There's a problem here. The spirits are saying they want me to change this. Also asking me to slow down because I can feel like my energy ramping up and they're like, slow down. Stay in it, stay present. If you're not breathing, please do breathe. Breathe really into your stomach as well. Fill your stomach with air. There is a lot of anxiety here, both being anxious for answers, but anxious to not hear the thing you don't want to hear. It's like both. It's like, I really want to know and I also don't want to know. And they're asking us to breathe through literally this energy here, like breathe through, relax through the tension of that experience. You don't need to not be having it, just allow breath to move. Okay, I'll slow down. You may find that I'm pausing quite a lot today, but that is because I'm not channeling as in automatic channel, it's more conversational, so it means I have to listen in order to say, so just give me a second. It feels like what's being communicated to us is this belief system is around the structure of white supremacist capitalism, basically. Like the structure and the order. And I don't like using those terms too often because sometimes we can use things to the point where they don't mean anything anymore. But ultimately, we also do have to name the systems and the structures that are intervening, interfering with our well-being. So I sometimes would like to say insert here, and you can put all the things in that you know are particularly obstructive or attempting to oppress you or control you. But I want you to think about it today as in like, think of it as a structure, okay, like as a building. And it's saying that the frameworks that we've been given through white supremacist capitalism and patriarchy is that we are rewarded for attempting to heal by experiencing fulfillment. Now, the spirits are saying we've got the energy of the lie here with the 5 of Knives and then the Mother of Baskets. So there is a lie about the experience of emotional mastery, which is about taking us out of emotional experience. Love that. So what Spirit's actually saying is that what we've been taught is to dominate our feelings. Woof, I can feel that. What we've been taught is to subjugate an emotion, is to control, and we know, for example, that those colonizing forces, okay, the forces of supremacy, I'm just going to call them because supremacy can come in more forms than whiteness, but the forces of supremacy are about control, right? And that control can often come through binding, restraint, repression, restriction, and law. And so what they're saying is our relationship to the concept of healing is to bind, control, subdue, manipulate the emotional experience. Under the framework of I don't want to be feeling these things, the healing vehicle allows me to no longer feel this and gives me space to feel this other thing. Yeah. So before I even got to ask the question, you can see the cards came right out and we have the King of Wands here with the White Newman card. This is a card that is unique to this deck. You don't find it in other decks. But I love it because of the cow in the center and how important cows were to indigenous cultures, particularly in terms of worshipping cows. And what that means about this White Newman card is really about creating a new beginning, particularly a new earth, a new life experience. I mean, you've got this King of Wands. So what it's saying is that if we, through the framework and the technology of healing, are attempting to alienate certain emotions and only experience other ones, what we're doing is that we're impairing the vehicle motivation, Mars we're talking about here, we're imperiling the vehicle that we use or need for creation, King of Wands. We're actually taking the battery out of our own car because we expect, therefore, a state of happiness or fulfillment to create this. And actually, there are aspects or processes of creation that come from energies that are nothing to do with feeling fulfilled. They're asking me to go back to the emotions deck to have a look at that. Also trying to slow down. Yeah, I've been talking about this a lot. So what they're saying at the moment is that one of the powerful motivators, the vehicle again, Mars, the motivation for us as a collective is hopelessness and empowerment. So this relationship we have to these two states, right? The promise of empowerment, the promise of self-empowerment, whether that's through education, whether that's through sex, whether that's through relationship, whether that is through status and your job, clout, clothes, whatever it is, whatever you have in your life, this promise that capitalism has given you to say that there are ways to put yourself on top in the world is the falsehood, the lie in that experience, the experience of being disempowered. Wherever you are in relationship to that, there is definitely a part of your life in which you're experiencing some form of disempowerment, either something's trying to take your power or you're struggling to enact your power. It's putting us in a state of hopelessness. But what they're saying is the hopelessness creates something very different to this state of feeling fulfilled. And I'm feeling the energy here that fulfillment doesn't create change. Fulfillment is akin to the energy of satisfaction. Satisfaction is a stabilizing, an energy of contentment. It is closed, it is complete, it is finished. I am not seeking anything else. And so therefore, if we're looking around at the world itself and we need change, whether that's not even for ourselves, right? Because we're thinking about collective. So we need individual change, but we also need like broad, wide scale change. Then satisfaction is not the mode that creates the world level changes that we're seeking, or the present life changes. And if you need a demonstration of that, I think the Taurus, and I don't think Scorpio is quite the same in this way, because I think about the Taurus-Scorpio axis, but we want to think about Taurus, Venus for Taurus, the pleasure and the satisfaction of fixed earth, right? Taurus is a fixed earth sign, being like, this is okay as it is. And you may find that Tauruses in your life may find it harder to change, right? To create the initial cardinal energy, the beginning energy of I'm going to change something. Taurus may be more motivated to maintain it or expanding the pleasure of what is, but not necessarily towards a complete change of everything, right? It's a sustaining, maintaining fixed energy through satisfaction, Venusian energy here. So if we are unfulfilled, this is a generative energy. It is a productive emotional state. It is doing something important. If we are feeling hopeless in the face of our disempowerment, it is doing something important. So let's look at what it's doing. Moon. And the framework and the concept coming through the moon energy is unknown. This is really powerful. So we have the Nine of Swords, which is related to anguish, long-term suffering, I would say, with the Nine of Swords as well. Nine of Swords is talking about a condition, particularly of the mental state or even the physiological state. But there is this sense of I am suffering in a long-term way. It's got to the 9 out of 10 because it has been going on for long enough to become, it is getting to a point of extreme. Then we have the Five of Pentacles here. Malnourishment, needs unmet, material life, day-to-day life, not bringing joy, blessing, fruition, fulfillment, all the things that we're seeking. This is struggling, undernourished in some way. And then the Two of Swords, mentally without answers, in the state of, I actually don't know what it is I could be doing with these experiences. I don't know how to transition or move from them. And then again, the moon is the first card out here, talking about the unknown. This is powerful because actually we know what we have created. We're very, very, very intimate and familiar with it, i.e. the social structures and systems that we're living in. But if I drop it down to the interpersonal level, then you know the quality of relationships that you have thus far. Let's say, for example, you have very codependent relationships and you're like, okay, I'm really trying to change how I show up. Or let's say you've been through lots of cycles of heartbreak, or you've never been in a relationship and never experienced love of a certain kind, or whatever that is, you are in a pattern, a long-term pattern and story of your life that you are very familiar with. Let's say something has been some kind of way for longer than it hasn't, right? And so the unknown is really, really powerful because what it does is it disrupts the story. This Two of Swords, I don't know what the fuck is going on energy, is actually the best vehicle you can be in right now if you are trying to create something other than what you have already created. Unknown. So what they're saying to us today is that fulfillment is not the technology that we need to be working with, expanding, or seeking. I know that sounds really radical. And I would also say, let what I'm saying to you sit in your body. You don't have to receive anything I'm saying as like as gospel, as like a truth in terms of supremacy. I want you to listen and engage and like toss and toy with it. Not like how you might taste food. I'm a person that needs to taste things or sometimes smell, see. But sometimes I really need to taste something to know if I like a thing or not. And I want you to take that approach when you work with me, which is taste, try it on what I'm saying, see what it feels like, chew it a little bit. And then if it really doesn't work for the framework of your life, if it's really discordant in some way, spit it out. But for now, the concept and the teaching we're working with is that fulfillment is a technology we need to temporarily, I'm not saying never, but in this present moment, we need to temporarily put down the technology of fulfillment. Very interesting because we got trust twice, came out twice, because I actually have the emotions deck twice and they're all shuffled together. So I love that. So actually we had angry and trust together. And then we had confident and trust together. Set these cards aside. Something is really, and it may just be myself, and I might want to check in on it. I'm going to ask them, something is really rushing me. And it may just be the energy of anxiety that's creating like speed up, speed up, speed up. And I'm really like, there's nothing to rush about. There's no, I could literally sit here till 8 p.m. Like there's nothing, and 8 p.m. is what, almost 4 hours from now. By that, I'm not going to, but by that I mean, there's no pressure on my time, and something inside me is like relentlessly like, get through this as quick as possible. And then the other energies we have are peaceful and encouraged. I'm going to come to all of these, but before I expand them, I just want to check in with the energy that is creating, it's kind of bullying me with speed. Okay, very interesting. A little bit of a drag. What they're saying is that they're allowing me to experience. They're allowing me to experience a daily state, which I think many of you will be able to relate to, which is the Ace of Wands and the Nine of Cups, right? This desire through that initiating fire energy to be happier, to be in a better place, for things to change. Temperance card, put something else in here, bring something else, do something different. Like this, like something must change to make me happier. And in this particular moment where I can feel the appropriate energy is to be really slow, all I can feel is like, go, 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 go. Whew. And what they're mirroring to me is that this is what I'm like every day. And in this moment, I can really feel how inappropriate it is, just how unhelpful it is. And the need to slow down. I also think that there's energies here around perfectionism and like proving oneself by moving fast. But there is the sense of like skill and mastery is being able to do something quickly, to not be pensive, to not be in the mind, to not be thinking, but like, I can do it really quickly is the energy of like, I'm very good at this. And that also showing up in this moment as another untruth is that speed is not an indicator of mastery. It's okay to go slowly, especially to do something well. Okay. So hopefully when I prompt and I remind you of this, you're taking the opportunity to breathe very deeply and to settle yourself as you relax. I hope you're even lying down, you know, I hope you're somewhere very comfortable as you listen, as you experience the temple energy today. We'll go for as long as we need to. I'm fine. If I need to pause and resume, I will, but I'm given the time and space today for the expansion of the teaching and the message. Okay. So if we're not working with the technology of fulfillment, it seems to me, with trust coming out twice, that trust is the energy, or at least it's the closest word. I think it's something a bit different they're going to lead us to, but it is the energy technology we need to be working with. Yeah. So immediately we have the relational dynamics coming up, 5 of Wands and 10 of Cups. Finding it difficult to be in relationship with one another, also feeling shut out or challenged by relationship, or not being recognized as worthy of relationship because you don't show up in the appropriate form, right? You don't look, speak, know in the same ways as this group. So opposition to the 10 of Cups, which is really talking here about the deepest and most broad, diverse levels of emotional expansion, experience, and including 1 cup of fulfillment. Us actually really struggling to be in the 10 of Cups experience. And actually, most of us really, again, like the cards they showed before, pursuing the 9, because the 10 is almost out of reach. The 9 we perceive as something that is we can create through the structure of independence, as in I can make myself happy. So that's the energy we're throwing everything into, because actually we've lost a lot of faith or the framework for even having the 10. And then we have Ace of Cups, 10 of Swords. So we're needing to cope with, respond to, find technologies to deal with being shut out of the 10 of Cups experience of emotional connection, collaboration, community, and fulfillment, and also to address the 10 of Swords experience. And they want to come back to the concept of healing now as it relates to 10 of Swords. If you're not familiar with the tarot cards, this 10 of Swords is actually, we're talking about the height, the extreme, the furthest extent of suffering now, in which the suffering has become so severe that it has completely overpowered the individual. This person is no longer able, from this position on the floor, to heal or address their own suffering. This is the point at which death enters, metaphorically speaking, although if you were sick, it would be the same, because there needs to be healing that has to come from outside of the self, right? This is not a self-sustaining energy. And 9 of Swords, we're still in a state where we might be able to get ourselves back. 10 of Swords, we can't. So they want to talk to us about healing the 10 of Swords. And they want to start by asking, I have so many cards out, guys. Can I clear some of this away? Yes. They want to start by talking about what parts of our lives, what is a 10 of Swords experience? What are the things that are now impossible for you to heal on your own, versus the 9 of Swords things, which is the things that you're doing through self-care, self-empowerment, and using your own spiritual tools, the things that you're able to do independent and solo. So I want you to have a think. Maybe put in the chat what you think for you is a 10 of Swords experience, something you can't heal of your own self. And if you're watching the playback, I want you to have a think about it. I'm going to get some prompts. Interesting. Mm. We have two things that come up as a Ten of Swords experience, and it's really interesting. I'm glad that they led us in this direction because I don't think I would have thought of it on my own, or that we're necessarily in the framework of considering things in this light. So what I mean by that is one of the things that we are in the Ten of Swords around, right? We can't heal independently around is rest, is our ability to slow down, to experience rest, peace, conditions of safety or comfort. This is not something that can be independently achieved. There's a lot of talk at the moment, a lot of resistance, particularly coming from like US intellectual spaces about rest and resistance. And I'm seeing people argue a lot that rest is not resistance. And I strongly agree with it. So disagree. Freudian. I strongly disagree with that. Individual rest cannot create collective liberation. Even individual rest is a form of resistance. What individual rest cannot do is sustain or create collective liberation. So when we say rest is resistance, we mean collective rest, which means to completely change our relationship to time. And to change our relationship to time means to change our relationship to work. And to do that, to change our relationship to the means of production for all the Marxists out there, which means changing our relationships to power in this world. So Spirit is saying we cannot rest independently, that the healing of rest is not something that we can experience on our own. It requires relationship, but also it requires relationship with others, right? So human relationships that allow you to rest. Let's say someone is like, I'm going to look after your babies for you, the kids, I'll watch them for the weekend, you take a break. That is a clear example of how rest is communal and enabled by community relationships, but they're also indicating some of the emotional and psychic rest that we are needing and seeking is from spirits and is in the technology that we name salvation, right? So we are looking to be saved. Part of the reason we engage with spirituality is for the sense of a higher power, a power other than ourselves, to intervene, to come in and to create something for us, right? To create a change in our lives, to give us reason and space to rest. And they want to say something about salvation as a technology. I really hope I can find my way back to all these different threads, but I'm also going to try and release control of where the reading is going and just allow them to instruct. Okay. So it's not that salvation isn't real or that we cannot be saved. Yeah. Because there are ways that we need to disrupt, and I was talking about this in our last horizon. There are ways we have to disrupt the philosophy of salvation and this idea that we can just wait to be helped, that we do nothing and we can just like manifest or believe or expect the divine to change our lives for us or to make everything better. Okay, there is a naivety and an undeveloped childlike state in that belief system. But we don't need to do away with salvation as a whole framework. What we need is a different relationship to understanding what salvation is. So what they've said is the tower energy is the force, the archetype that we are seeking salvation from. This feeling that things are crumbling on you, around you, are about to get you in some way, right? That is one of the big things that you are seeking to be rescued from. Whatever is collapsing and going to fall on you is going to crush you. And they're saying, well, actually, the divine's perspective on salvation is kind of comes in two ways. One is moving you out of the tower experience. And I think this is interesting because most of us are seeking to engage the tower through some idea, politics of trying to save the world, right? change the world, save the world is falling, all these terrible things are happening, what can we do? How can we even organize to change the world from this tower experience? And the divine concept of salvation is actually not to save the tower, is to leave falling towers, to go towards the 10 of Pentacles, which is to build new structures that can support the life that you are attempting to live. There is an abandonment energy here in the tower. I'm not trying to, the image they're giving me is like when people would tie very, very old technology, because it works, it uses physics, and you get ropes and you use leverage to try and like pull something to keep it from falling. So think of like tug of war energy, and they're like, no more, that is the wrong kind of energy. Stop doing tug of war with the tower energy in your life, wherever it's collapsing. And I do, you know, I am a world changer myself, so I do tend to think about these concepts in like very broad terms, like societal level, but I'm hoping, and I will try to support you in applying this at the very personal level. The things in your life that are fucking falling apart, because there are definitely things in mine, there is a need to stop trying to hold them up. There is some wisdom in letting things fall and moving away from collapsing structures in your life towards things that are ready to actually be erected, that can be built. So this is really working again with this, the principle of Saturn. Okay, we want to understand what is worth giving our sustained energy and effort towards, even when it's difficult, because difficulty is not the barometer of whether we do something or not. Okay, but we want to understand, does this structure have integrity? By that I mean, and I'm not an architect by any means, but let's just use architecture. Can this, I was going to use the bridge, and I hope that's not, I'll use it because it's something that's happened very recently. I think it was in the DC area, the bridge that collapsed in the US, and we're thinking about the integrity of the bridge, you know, and people being like, was it constructed properly? And that would be the reason why so many people lost their lives. And then other people saying, well, actually, a bridge is never supposed to be able to withstand the impact of a moving boat of the number of tons that it was. So that's what I kind of mean by structural integrity. There are some things that simply cannot survive some things, and it's okay to let them fall. And then in the other cases here, and really grace and compassion to those who lost their lives in that experience. And then in this case here, we need to check when we are trying to build and create new things in our lives, when we're coming up with projects and we're working on things, relationships, business ideas, whatever it is, we need to be asking ourselves, does this structure that I'm coming up with have integrity? Can it sustain the types of things that I am asking it to give me shelter from? So if you were in a rainy country, you wouldn't build a home with no roof. Do you know what I mean? Like, that's kind of what I mean. So you need to take the conditions into mind, and then you want to assess. So Spirit is saying that part of the technology of salvation is letting go of crumbling things. The salvation is going towards the things that actually can stand the test of time, Saturn, ruling time here. And so what we need to be doing as it pertains to our own kind of like attempt to save ourselves is working with the things that are going to rescue us. And in this case, the pursuit of fulfillment is not, I'm still expanding what kind of will in this time, but we need to let go of healing and fulfillment as a model towards like creating change or getting to where we want to in our lives. The other aspect of salvation that we are able to experience, the High Priestess and the Seven of Cups. Now this is catharsis. Very personally, someone with Neptune in the 7th aspecting my personal moon, my natal moon, High Priestess. I have moon in the house of the goddess, 7 of Cups. I understand the spiritual experience, spiritual connection, creating catharsis, creating emotional release, creating a sense of movement, options and change on the emotional level, and then that being able to be take new action to change things on the material level. So that's also the technology of salvation. But Spirit is saying, I can help and support you to feel differently about what you're experiencing. And I remember when I first did cognitive behavioral therapy, and, I remember saying to my therapist, I don't want to feel differently about what happened to me. Like, stop trying to tell me to change my thought processes, like my mental processing about really horrible things. But the truth is that our fields of emotion are the most important material building blocks of our lives. What you feel and the sensory level, because I don't just mean emotion when I talk about feeling now, I'm even talking about this level of feeling. Sensory interaction and perception is everything. And so your ability to be conscious, aware of your sensory state and your fields of emotional experience has everything to do with what is or is not being created in your immediate life. And then again, on a collective level, what we are mass producing, mass creating. Let's have some water. You should do the same. Or at least hydrate with your liquid of choice, because water isn't always the most hydrating thing. Coconut water is a good option. So those are, I've told this, no, I've done these. These are the two primary modes of salvation that are available to us as we are dealing with very, 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 very difficult things. So let's have a look at the technology now of trust or interdependency. And I do find that difficult. As in, there are wounds for me that make it hard for me. I have a resistance to going towards this message, is what I'm saying. So just doubling back a little bit, we were talking about the emotional experiences that are things that we cannot escape or process on our own before I come back to trust. So we have rest, and rest led us to this conversation on salvation and how we can experience salvation from spirit, and also how our relationships with each other allow the state of rest. And then there's something else here. It's a little tricky. I need to feel into it. There's something related here to belief systems, but I can't understand it fully. Okay. So this is dealing with the technology, yeah, the spiritual technology that is faith. This is a tricky one because we have the King of Swords and the Black New Moon, and this is also talking about the philosophy or the religious energy frameworks of our world being ones that are leading us to a dissolution, a destruction, or an apocalypse here. A world-ending experience, whether that is for you, where through the energies of depression, grief, heartbreak, and whatever else you're feeling in that field of emotion is leading to your world feeling like it's ending, deprivation, etc., or looking around the world and being like, right, the world is really ending. Like, look at, when we're saying the world's ending, we're really talking about hope ending, possibility ending, right? We're talking about a narrowing down, closing down of options. So what they're saying is that it is too difficult on an individual basis to contend with the religion and the philosophy of this world. On our own, we cannot navigate ourselves out of the belief systems that have colonized us. And I say the spirits are loving this. They really like, we love that the teaching is happening. Okay. So If we can't navigate us, is this the right deck? Yes and no. I'm going to start here. If we can't navigate ourselves away from colonized mindset, and when I say colonize in this context, I don't just mean white supremacy or the colonization that's happened via the forces of like Europe and America. I'm talking about the colonization as a principle concept itself, which is to take over and use for its own purpose. So any belief systems that you've taken on that are functionally using your life force, your creativity, your mind, your body for the purpose of something other than what your own desire and will is, but without your knowledge a lot of the time, because it's already inducted you through, you've been mentally induced through the belief system. So it looks like part of what it creates the waking up and the disruption from the colonization of religion and philosophy in terms of our belief systems about what is possible and how the world can be is actually the frustration or the friction of our relationships with others. So it's actually seeing people have a different experience to you, whether that is seeing people have more of something or less of something. So either it can be like this person is having more access to love, peace, pleasure, joy than I am. What in my belief system and theirs is different. So you start contrasting. Or you may come from the other vantage point. I'm having a kind of life experience that this other person seems to not be having. They are having some level of difficulty or subjugation that's different to mine. What is different in our belief systems? And so what we got is this compare and contrast energy. And it's tricky because we can compare and contrast through different emotions, and those emotions can color our results or our conclusions. So for example, those emotions could show up as, let's say it's through the vehicle of jealousy. I'm really jealous that someone is experiencing this. They have money, they have love, they have parents, they have freedom, they have time, they have children, whatever it is. But you are like, this is leading me to feel fairly jealous of them. Then you may, through the pain of jealousy, begin to project on that person and draw conclusions like, well, they never deserved it anyway. Do you know what I mean? Like it was never worth it in the first place, or they didn't earn it. It was just given to them. Whatever it is, like we don't actually assess what am I saying? We don't assess the philosophy well. We don't contrast the philosophy appropriately. And even if it's not contrasting with their philosophy, we don't interrogate our own philosophy well enough, right? We don't go, well, what in my belief system is different or is not allowing something that I can see as clearly possible. Now, it may not mean that you need to change your belief system. For example, if you see someone that's really successful on the basis of exploiting other people, then in your belief system and philosophy, that might not be an energy or value system that you approve of or want to be in, i.e., you may not want to live your life through the forms of exploitation. So you may be like, okay, the vehicle of success that they have is not one I can get in. Therefore, I don't need to be judging myself according or comparing myself according to what I see them experiencing. But I think what they're saying is that there is something in the relational dynamic, no matter what, that is going to bring up contrasting and comparing. Not necessarily competition, because sometimes when we're in competition with each other, that can create really unhealthy energy. But they're saying that we have to be honest, that being in relationship and being in observance of each other's lives means that we are learning through observation and contrast. And it doesn't always mean, like I said, dropping your own belief system. Sometimes it will validate it. Sometimes it will be like, I need to expand into something else. So just recapping for myself, following the threads of what we've been doing, we are talking about assessing, coming out of the colonization of our mind and certain belief systems. So again, the belief system, for example, that healing the purpose of healing is to not experience certain emotions and to go towards the sole goal is fulfillment. And that being co-opted, the concept, the spiritual technology of healing, therefore being co-opted by the dominant cultural structure and philosophy, which is white supremacist, capitalist, patriarchy. How do we then unlock ourselves from the conditioning and the mental brainwashing, really, of this of taking something that is a spiritual technology for another use? And how we do that, again, is by the friction of relationship. Because what relationship does is it introduces us to something other than our own internal experience. And so that relationship can also therefore be your relationship you have with art, because that's one of the ways I use it. Reading books, watching shows, listening to music, engaging through observation with other experiences, other stories than the story I'm living in, which is my life does this, I've experienced this, my life has been this way, in order for me to see the possibilities and be like, oh, maybe there's an aspect of that person's belief system or philosophy that actually I would like to expand into and release something that actually is causing me to be stuck or trapped. So that's going to require a new level of openness between us, a level of openness that relates to not shutting down and alienating everything and that is different, okay? Everything that is culturally different, physically different, whatever it is, like everything that is not the same as you. And this is going to be coming up a lot with Pluto and Aquarius and our fear of the other. This is something that spiritually we're going to have to overcome, because diversity, difference, other is part of the spectrum of expansion and learning for us. We have to be around difference. We have to participate and collaborate with our own difference. I am different to you in beautiful ways, and you get the joy of experiencing that difference, and I get the joy of experiencing your contrast to me, and I get to learn and know more of who I am in contrast to you by being like, oh wow, you're really like that, I'm kind of like this, that's different. And I also get to be like, wow, I'm a sunflower, you're rose, kind of thing, like, wow, your difference is very beautiful. Okay, so I think I've made that point. Yeah, the spirit team are saying yes, well enough. So I want to move us forward. Sorry, excuse me. Our main topic then at the moment is the experiences that we need other people to heal from or to heal through. And that brings us back to the technology of trust. And it does feel like I've had to circle it or step around it very gently, you know, to be like, softly, softly, slowly, slowly, coming from the left, coming from the right, approaching it again gently, so that it's something that I can also engage in, experience, and heal from. Feeling called to a new deck, Dreams of Gaia. This deck is to kind of look at, we're ready to kind of expand the technology of trust, or to find a new name for what this thing is that we need to be using as our vehicle. It's the best vehicle for us right now. Really interesting, because I expected the reading itself to bring the energy of catharsis, and it'll be up to you to say whether or not it has. But what I can see is that this is a teaching that is going to allow you to create catharsis, as in you're not going to have to come to me to get it. You will be able to establish it on your own. Okay. Okay, so one of the biggest things in this technology of trust, and we're still edging towards it. We haven't landed in the middle of the concept yet. But one of the big things here is actually a big abandonment wound that relates to the mother God principle, the maternal energies of the divine. that this world as a whole is suffering a deep mother wound. And that in many ways our attempts to respond to that mother wound are coming through sexual and intimate relationships. Here's the baby, the child's self experiencing the wounded state. And this is actually the only vehicle that many of us have towards addressing that mother wound. I have a question for them, because how does this relate to people who have really good, healthy, supportive relationships with a human mother, for example? Yeah. Before I pulled the cast, one of the things that they said to me is that I have a deep, how can I put it? I was injured by my birth giver, and I don't have a umbilical cord to a healthy mother. And they said to me, you still have you've had throughout your life really beautiful, beautiful experiences with women. So you know that women are good and loving, and you know the energies of mother and women, but you don't know a mother's love specific towards you. And they use that as a metaphor to talk about, even if you know a human mother's love, it's not the same as a God mother love, the divine maternal love. In the same way that me experiencing beautiful human maternal energies is not the same as experiencing it from the person who birthed me. Okay, so these cards are saying the recipe. Yeah. So these two cards, I don't know that you'll be able to, I can channel it, you might not understand the interpretation of it, but these two are talking about the recipe of mothering that is missing from the world, and then being born, death, rebirth, being born into a world and being in pursuit of, seeking, searching for mother. This is a primary wound. And there's a lot of anger, which is interesting because I'm feeling that energy here, angry. There's a lot of anger around being unmothered. And it isn't specifically, the anger that any of us are feeling is not actually about necessarily being directed at mother themselves. Yeah, it's not with the knowledge of mother. So basically, it's to say we're not thinking, speaking about mother when we're feeling our anger, but it is a wound of being unnourished, unnurtured. So we're thinking about neglect, we're thinking about going without. Our rage is in relation to what we have not had, and that is the separation from mother. Yeah. And also we've been given a surrogate, which is really difficult. That being born into this world, there is a mother in this world, and we have a surrogate mother, and it looks a bit like this, as in there was an intention here, a plan to give a different mother to the mother God that is available to us through many different formats, one of the most easily being nature. But I want you to know that Mother God is beyond the sentience of even connecting with earth and nature. That's one way. That's not the fullness of her expression. So I wanted to ask a little bit the teachings of the surrogate mother. Is it a mother that is taken the place of the divine mother philosophically, and that we are introduced to, the concept of mother we're introduced to in this world. And it's very interesting because what comes through is the energy that this surrogate mother, her primary energy is I have favorites. So here we go. There's 10 of Knives. Again, that same 10 of Swords energy. People who cannot liberate themselves from the extreme cases of pain and despair, or whatever it is that they're experiencing that is of a negative nature. And then here comes, in the form of the Sun card, the mother here. I respond to your needs, I nurture, I give to you. But then there are others in the form of the Railroad Bill, which is equivalent to Chariot card, and the Magician, Black Hermit here, which are like, you must do it yourself. Get up and get going pull yourself up from the bootstraps, right? So there are children I respond to, and there are children I neglect. I have favorites. Three of Cups, Three of Baskets. There are children that I nurture and play with and give a good life. And there are children, Seven of Baskets, I ignore. I do not perceive, I don't see. There are children I leave to fate and to time. There are people in this world that whatever happens to them, happens to them. And that is the philosophy and the behavior of the surrogate mother of this world. Favoritism, hierarchy, supremacy, neglect, abandonment, and forcing others, even with acknowledging that you may be in states in which you cannot empower yourself, there is the invalidation of the surrogate mother of this world that says you must do it anyway. Okay. So then what we get when we kind of come back to this energy of confidence and trust is that for us to be able to work with the technology of trust, and again, like I said, we're angling towards what that really is. We haven't landed in the truth and the framework of that yet. But for us to be able to get there, there is a confidence we need to be able to have in whom and what can catch us. And at this level, we're not actually talking about human relationship to human relationship, we're talking about the divine. And because of the abuse of surrogate mother, we have a very distorted and abusive relationship with divinity. And that means that we have learned structures, frameworks of relating that make abuse normalize and then allow certain energies, beings, even deities, gods, to interact with us and expand on the basis of us giving our power away or accepting abusive relationships. I remember someone tweeted that they had this terrible time and they were in a car crash and like 5 other really bad things happened to them, and that was God's way of saying that they needed to have faith or something. And I was like, this is abuse. Like, this is what God is abusing you. And I said, under any other relationship framework, someone putting you through that to ask you to believe in them would be abusive. And so what is it about divinity and our concepts, our philosophy, our colonization around divinity that causes us to engage in abusive dynamics and call it something else? Now, is divinity different to a human relationship? Yes. But we need to use some sense. And by sense, again, I mean perception and knowledge. We need to use sense to be able to discern, well, what exactly is different about a divinity? Because, and I said this to a friend because I watch a lot of occult shows, I just enjoy them. And I was watching, I won't give the name away in case it's a spoiler for some of you, but I was watching a show. I binge watched a show recently, and I was just like, there's such a common trope, particularly in American occult shows, where some being, particularly a demon of some kind, will start dating a woman, make her, promise her all this like beautiful stuff, get her to fall in love, have sex with her, and then be like, I want you to birth me now, so like also be my mother. And it's a really warped energy, because then she'll give birth to this demon and then be like, oh, it's my child, and just real blurring of lines. And I was like, why? This is such a weird trope, like why? And also for me, particularly the consciousness of white female identity, or white women's identity, if female feels abrasive to people, white women's identity in which through your own storytelling, there is not engagement with like the technology of like discernment and safety, so that you are always willing to date or flirt or fuck the demon. Why? It's so like when I was watching, I was like, but why are you so willing? I'm not even understanding why you're so up for it. Like, anyway, I'm going off track with this part of my story. What I'm saying is that there is a way, therefore, that these stories, right, these myths, the way that we're engaging in media, is giving away that we have a relationship to the divine, which is about the divine has all the power and we have none. and then finding ourselves, as these characters invariably do, in a situation in which we've been duped or tricked. We've been tricked out of the power we originally had, which is typically the power of agreement or consent, right? As in, you didn't have to sleep with the demon. There was nothing forcing you to do that. But at the point in which you could have said yes or no, you didn't engage with your power. You gave your power away and then found yourself in a place where you're somewhere along a story in which it's impossible to unravel, right? In this case, you're pregnant and the demon is gestating very quickly, so you're going to give birth in the next 2 hours. Do you know what I mean? You don't have enough time to even figure out what to do about this. Like, how can you terminate a demon? But there's no time you're going to give birth to a demon. And this is what I mean about our relationship to divinity disempowering us and us telling ourselves about this through our story, through our art, through our media. So let's ask our spirits, where do they want to take us in terms of being able to establish better relationships with the otherworldliness? So we start with the earth element, ace of earth, first one earth here, primary earth energy, elemental. And then we have the journey energy here,